All right, shooters, go ahead and draw to the ready. From a low ready position at the beep, you're going to fire 5 shots. You have 4 seconds to do it. Are you ready?
Yes.
Stand by. .248. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's Neil, the range monkey, and old leather belly himself, Chris Bean. I'm going to make that stick. Please make that stick. Hey, welcome back to the channel. We are doing the third part of stage 3 of the FBI qual.
Nice.
We're going to talk about it in just a second.
Today's video is brought to us by Mantis. The Mantis family of products is integral to ASP staff building handgun and carbine skills and are your most economical and fastest path to improvement in your skills too. Whether you choose the X10, the Laser Academy, the Blackbeard, or use them all in concert, they will help your practice be more effective, efficient, and fun. Go check them out, pick up a unit, and thank them for sponsoring today's video.
So the third part of stage 3, we're still at 7 yards. We've just done the reload and we're finishing up at 7 before we really start to stretch this out. But now it is from a ready. You have to fire 5 shots in 4 seconds. Mm-hmm. That's more shots than seconds. For those of you that can't do math like me, that can be a challenge, mm-hmm. right? So talk me through your process, Natalie.
While you were kind of explaining the drill, I was visualizing it in my head of, okay, all right, we'll just bring it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mm-hmm. Yep. And that kind of fifth shot kind of cemented the amount in for me. Because if you watched a couple of weeks ago, that was something that just kind of got me.
Yep. It happens. Yeah.
But yeah, so I think actually taking the time to visualize what I was doing helped me in every area, not just getting the right amount of shots every area. So.
Well, and we'll show you the targets here in a minute, but they both got all of their hits. Chris, talk us through your process.
So mine's very similar to what Natalie was talking about, like the pre-event kind of walk through in your head, but I do the same thing when I shoot it. So I do it pre and then I replicate it. So that's really what I'm trying to do. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I actually count. A lot of times, if you guys watch videos closely enough, I count out loud. Yep. Don't make fun of me. But it helps me figure that out. And it helps me give my conscious mind something to think about so I can just shoot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I think sometimes we fall into this trap or down this rabbit hole of really trying to figure out the process while we're in the process, and that messes things up even more. So sometimes we have to, that's why we do the dry fire. That's why we do all of the work. That's why we're out here to practice, so that on that day when it's time to perform, and it's time to pass a qual, or it's a challenge, or you're a competitive shooter, or God forbid you're on the street and you know, something cracks off that you have to draw your gun. Now your brain is free to do some other stuff because this is all, it's all done. We've myelinated everything that we need to do so that we can give ourselves the most possible time before we pull the trigger in a real life situation. Because God forbid something kicks off and then you misread it and you shot something that didn't need to be shot because you were a little slow or something along those lines. So that's why we're doing all of this. So let's shoot her one more time for everybody at home, and then we'll look through the targets. And when we're done with that, we'll give you some homework so you can go to the gym or to the gym. You can go to the gym.
I mean, that's what I call it.
Get yourself buff and get swole, or you can go to the range and you can practice other stuff. So, all right, back to 7 yards.
All right, here we go.
All right, let's make sure you each have 5 in the gun.
Yeah, let's do that.
5 shots, 4 seconds. Are we ready?
Yep.
Stand by. .258. 258. Plenty of time.
Plenty of time.
Let's go look at the targets, and I'll tell you why Natalie's got that look on her face.
All right, so I marked all of the ones that were from previous ones. And to reiterate, this is all still passing, but this is just for my own OCD.
Yep.
So this shot was my second to last one.
Yep.
And I saw exactly where it was going, and I could not pull myself out of that trigger pull. It was too late by the time I realized what was going on, and I pulled it over there. But my last shot went somewhere in here.
You did correct it. Yep.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So again, you know, the good lesson here is you stayed present. This is still a hit that counts. This doesn't DQ her. This doesn't count against her. It counts against the little challenge between Chris and Natalie and who's going to have the least amount of Charlies. However, Chris is counting them. However, that's still an acceptable hit.
I'm up by one.
You're up by
It's
one.
like I'm in the lead by one.
All right, let's look at Chris's target.
Yeah, so the big thing so mine, everything was kind of clean in there. Everything else kind of came from other ones. But the thing that Natalie said that I think is very important, where she started talking about like shot calling. She saw the error happen in real time. She corrected it on the next shot. That's an important thing that to understand that you can do. Now, they're all acceptable shots. They're all in, but if they're not exactly where you want, you can kind of fix that in real time. You just have to start learning to read your sights in real time. And if you can start doing that with practice on the range, life gets a ton easier.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about some homework for this week. I think that's a good one. So talk about what that looks like at the range and how to actually put that into practice as you're reading those shots.
Yeah. So for me, like, I can just explain how I got proficient at that. So whatever target you have, so say you're using a target similar to this, an AC, I would draw a line somewhere in alpha, and I would watch the dot and want to see the dot bouncing on that line. So if we had a horizontal line, just watch it bounce, and I want it to be relatively close to it. So just starting to learn to read the basketball as it's being dribbled.
Yeah. Or Natalie calls it the heartbeat.
Yeah.
Reading the heartbeat. Yeah.
Because really the only way to do it is have something relatively finite, something smaller to really not slow down. Just see how is the dot behaving with my grip, things like that. Then you can make mechanical adjustments versus just grasping or rolling the dice and hoping it works out well.
Yeah. I mean, this is not unlike learning how to do a bill drill. This is, I mean, you're essentially, you've got all your grip before the beat. You've got the draw isn't part of this problem. The problem is recoil and being visually patient enough to let all the recoil happen when it needs to happen. And so Natalie, you threw one and you were what were we at 258 or whatever?
We had all the time in the world.
So much more time, which now you guys are shooting fast and you're shooting good and we're still passing. So that's not necessarily any kind of a problem. But if you find yourself getting outside of that Q target, outside of the C zone or the Charlie, if this is the kind of target you're using to practice on, that's when we need to really slow down and take the care and tell yourself, hey, I have to see my sight. Again, don't tell yourself to slow down because you'll slow your trigger finger down. You'll slow all of your other movements down. Tell yourself to take the care to see what you need to see and then do what you got to do. Don't just do what you got to do because the process says it's time to pull the trigger now. What tells you to pull the trigger now is the sight. And if you don't have the sight where you want it, don't pull the trigger. And it's really hard to get out of it, isn't it?
It is.
And so don't think that because you can't do it, that it can't be done, or that others don't struggle with this. Now you're a pretty high-end shooter, and so is Chris, and I feel like I'm a pretty good shooter, and I struggle. We all three struggle with this. Sometimes we're just not patient enough to let this go because we want to go fast, and it should be there, and sometimes we trust it, and it's just not there. Yeah. So get to the range, do a few of these, just like when we did the 6 shots or the 4 shots. Do a few of these on the A zone. And then when that starts getting chewed up, mark your misses so that you can keep track of what your pattern looks like. And if you have to, come down here into the bottom of the corner and shoot your 4 or 5 shots down here and then shoot 4 or 5 shots over there. Use up the entire target. That's what they're for. And don't waste a whole ton of targets on this, but finish your session with a clean target and get your 5 shots in 4 seconds and really read that so you can go home with a win and then come into next week for the next challenge because next week we're going to 15. We'll see you then.